Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about an interesting content that I was feeling like needed a little bit more explanation specifically. So I've been talking a lot lately about the Saturn-Uranus squares, which have been in effect since 2021, and I've really been seeing that energy express itself and materialize and manifest really obviously because of the nature of those two planets and the signs that they're in. It has led to a lot of really obvious manifestation of energy, but I wanted to come on and make a really specific video about actually the grand fixed cross that we're having on August 14th. So if you saw my Supermoon in Aquarius video, you would have seen that I mentioned that the Saturn-Uranus squares are really reactivating with that Supermoon in Aquarius, and also this grand fixed cross that happens on August 14th, and echoes likely for the rest of the year, certainly until around October when we have the final strong Saturn-Uranus square. So I wanted to come on a little bit and talk about coping with this current fixed cross energy. It is difficult for a lot of people. The fixed energy, it depends on the makeup of the person and the chart of the person, but the fixed crosses, like any cross, are always going to bring up some challenges relating to the status quo, relating to norms, relating to life methods, relating to cycles as well, and how we experience consistency, what our routine and our solidity or stability in life is, and where we identify those concepts in our life. So a fixed cross is always going to maybe ask a lot of questions about our own personal status quo. It's going to create a new structure. It's going to, in some way, maybe even reinforce or regress to another type of structure as well, or another previous structure. You can even see like historical or older, more ancient methods of structure coming into popularity or just coming up to be reinstituted also with a fixed cross. So yes, I just think that this topic needs some more illumination. I will talk a little bit more about the Saturn-Uranus squares in this video, and I kind of want to take it from a different angle actually with this video though, and I want to talk about how can we make this easier? How can we transcend this feeling of conflict, this feeling of identity crisis, this feeling of value crisis and uncertainty? So yes, as this is a transit that has been in effect for more than a year and has been moving in and out of direct configuration, it's something that we're used to by now. So capacity to run things over in your mind over and over again, a tendency to vacillate, a tendency to feel opposed or antagonized, also a feeling of opposing forces coming face to face, or a direct nature to what used to be a passive conflict. All of these interpretations of Saturn-Uranus square are going to be transforming and changing now. This grand fixed cross will take it to another level. I feel there will be an evolution of conflict here. So it's possible, actually, that with this grand fixed cross on August 14th, that people will actually not have the same conflicts they were having throughout 2021, or they'll be having a direct feeling of resolution. So this grand fixed cross does bring in an opportunity for resolution, and it also brings in a likelihood of a new way, or even a moving backwards to a different previous way, or a different previous structure. So I think people might be backtracking with this energy. I think that people might be returning for something, returning to complete a goal. It's a very completionist energy, this Saturn-Uranus square, especially adding the other points with Sun in Leo and a South Node in Scorpio. It's very much like taking back one's power. And it's a very good time for any kind of reclaiming like this, or any kind of like looking back or drawing some type of moral, as I do feel this fixed cross requires a new moral or a new conclusion on a long-running issue. Also, anything that's long-running in your life, so anything that you're getting really good at, let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about mastery and really implementing certain things into our lives and what that means at this point. So to me, one of the biggest questions coming up over the next few months is, what is that in your life. Okay, so what is something, whether this is a job, relationship, or any other aspect of your life, what are you taking for the long haul? What is a long haul aspect of your experience? And does that need reworking here? One of the positives of this square is it's really, not letting us overlook things that don't feel good or things that are out of place in our life. So we have certain maybe attachments to the comfort that something out of place in our lives provides. So we have maybe an attachment to a career or to a source of income or to a person or to a location that gives something, but maybe it's not in the right place. Okay. So that is very much elucidated with this energy. It's like feng shui, okay? It makes me think of that, where it's like you might have the most beautiful furniture, but if it's not really placed right, it can also become a burden, okay? Like if you have like the most beautiful, most expensive furniture, and it's like out of a good place, or it's like right in front of the window or right in front of the door, well, that beautiful, expensive thing is actually maybe a burden or actually some kind of impediment to the natural flow of energy. So I would definitely take a look at this with this fixed cross. It's like, what dynamics do you have like that in your life, where there's something that's like, wow, this is a beautiful piece of furniture, okay, but it's out of place and it's creating an impediment. Wow, this is a beautiful article of clothing, but it doesn't fit me right. Wow, this is an incredible person, but they don't even know who I am. Like I'm not even like telling them like my wants or my desires or where I'm going in life. Therefore, they have a false impression. So also take a look at communication of false impression with this fixed cross and moving forward over these next few months. It's like, what am I communicating that creates a false impression or creates anything that becomes out of place? So this false impression or this other world that some people are creating with their own expression or creating with their own just creative capacity might lead people to treat you differently, or to treat you as this construct that you're creating or as this person that you've created. So if that ever fails, or if that ever becomes, inauthentic for you, well, that becomes hard, because now maybe this like true person that you are, or that one is not really what this other person is interested in. So definitely with like the dating culture, okay, with, consumer culture as well. Careful about faking it, okay? So when you're on a date and you're like telling somebody that you're someone you're not, they're going to either fall in love with someone that you're not, or they're not going to be interested because it's not like you. It's the same thing with this consumer culture. It's like, wow, this product or this object is really nice in and of itself, but does it mix well with me, or does it make sense for me or for someone else? So I think that this is a great opportunity for people to really forge a new authentic personal culture, or a new authentic personal style or language of self-expression, where it's not so much about the marketing that another person has done that leads you to think that something that's not for you is for you. It's actually about creating a new culture of what you really like and what really makes sense for you. So I think that this fixed cross could be a really good time for some people to reinvent their expression, okay? Maybe to take on maybe not something brand new, but say, for example, you've been a musician for a long time. Maybe you've played, the guitar for 15 years. Maybe with this fixed cross, you could totally enter into a new genre of music with your guitar playing. The thing about fixed energy is it never indicates a brand new venture or something that we have zero context with. It's kind of like taking what we have a lot of context with a different direction, or a different way, or doing it differently. So I would definitely recommend that you all look at what your long-running talents are, what your long-running capabilities, skills, and expressions have been, and how can those maybe adapt or adhere to the way you've evolved. Okay, this is a very important understanding of this time, and it's kind of come a little bit early, honestly. I was, as many of you who remember who've been listening to my channel for a while, I've been talking a lot about 2023 lately on this channel, because I do feel it's such a pivotal juncture for so many people's lives, especially early 2023. So This is already kind of affecting us, though, and it makes sense because it's already August of 2022, y'all. Can you believe it's already like mid-August of 2022? Only like 4 more months left of this year, 4.5 more months. So this is already very relevant. It's kind of like a question of, okay, what's outworn? What's old and out of place? At the same time, how can you respect the way that that has been a part of you or a part of your life by updating or letting it come into its own or into your own new need or desire for that? We can already, starting with this fixed cross, start to ask these questions and start to maybe get a glimpse of the way that older or long-running aspects of our identity or our life, how it kind of starts to merge with the way that we're changing in time. And this, I think, is why also many of us will be experiencing backtracking or taking back power, reaching back for something, looking back for some type of completion or some type of new significance for our future goals. So one of the most incredible things that astrology has taught me, and just life as well, is that you really have to understand where you're coming from in order to move forward very well. So people sometimes get a philosophy of like, I just got to move forward. I've just got to like make progress. I've got to change things. I've got to never look back. It's a very prevalent mindset. And sometimes for some people that can work, but with this type of astrology, we have to really understand where we're coming from, and we have to really deeply, I think, venerate or respect things that we might not even, feel are that representative of us now, but were once maybe a pinnacle of where we wanted to be. That's also very prevalent when this Aquarius energy came in late 2020, and this is still really impacting us because we still have Saturn in Aquarius, and we have Uranus squaring it, which is Aquarius's home ruler, and this is the Saturn-Uranus square that I've been talking about, and it gets even further intensified by the Sun in the South Node at the other fixed signs at Leo and Scorpio. So this is really, I think, a turning point for this type of dialogue about what is the context of the old and the new, and how do I merge these things together? How do I move forward with the old aspects of myself without disrespecting those things, and therefore disrespecting who I once was or who one once was, yet also allowing myself not to be confined, or allowing oneself not to be confined by what we previously did and not letting that become a prison. It's a very difficult balance for a lot of people in this current climate to, on one hand, respect what came before, yet not be confined by it. And that's really what this transit is asking us. It's asking us not to look down on who we once were, because that would, to me, would be very easy right now for people to be like, ugh, I look down on my previous goal, or I don't understand where I was coming from. I don't know why I ever wanted to participate in this or that, yet here I am, still so devoted to it. That's a very prevalent feeling for a lot of people. A lot of people want a big change. It's kind of like a midlife crisis for a lot of people. Saturn-Uranus square. It's like the energy of a midlife crisis where people are like, let me go get that red sports car. Let me dye my hair. Let me change something just to prove to myself that I am, disdainful of where I once was. And it's not to say that where we once were was totally perfect or right. Like, we wouldn't have this feeling if it were. But I do think that we need to take caution with looking down on ourselves. And I'm kind of stressing this a lot, and I'm feeling this very strongly with this transit, with the identity component of this fixed cross. Why do people go into an identity crisis? Well, it's because they have some type of personal transformation, right? They go through something, or they experience something that changes them. Therefore, who they once were, or what they were once aiming for in their lives, doesn't resonate anymore, but they still have that momentum. So that's the recipe for an identity crisis. And one of the great ways to overcome identity crisis is to not be scared of who you once were or what you once wanted, but not to be confined by it. So for all of us, I can't really give you the answer to how you do that, because that's different for everybody, but that is a challenge of this time, and it will be at least until October of this year when we have the final Saturn-Uranus square. And I would say that will linger until the next all planets direct phase, which is January of 2023. So to kind of illustrate that further, and you can also refer to my 2022 mid-year update video, which I'll link below and in the top right-hand corner, to understand more about the rest of this year. But I wanted to really talk about and dive into the next level of Saturn-Uranus square that I feel is indicated by this fixed cross. It's like it's a threshold, it's a turning point, and we move into the final stage of these Saturn-Uranus squares, also the supermoon in Aquarius demonstrating that. So I'm just going to kind of go into that very raw here because I haven't outlined much about it, but I feel it very strongly. We'll see if I can talk through it. So whereas previously the Saturn-Uranus square might have presented an unanswerable question for a lot of people, it might have shown some type of unsolvable quandary, some type of unresolvable issue or seemingly unresolvable issue. It might have also put a few fears into people's lives that may and may not have been warranted to really be that worrisome, which should already pretty much be resolved by now and have shown itself to be either a benign or problematic issue. That phase is ending, and the phase that we're moving into now with this Saturn-Uranus square, as we move into the very last part, is kind of a blessing in disguise. So I think that consistency has not been abandoned by many people at this point. So a lot of people are still connected to some form of consistency that they have been probably for a few years now. But I think that there are a few possibilities. So for some people, this next stage of the Saturn-Uranus squares is going to be like so difficult to face somewhat simple things that just aren't right anymore. So regardless of how easy the job that you hate is, it's going to be harder to do, okay? Regardless of how kind, attractive, or endearing someone that you've had a bad feeling about is, the negative starts to outweigh the small aspect of the positive. So what I'm trying to say here is that situations that are not good, but that we've maybe rationalized, cannot be rationalized any further. And vice versa, rational things that we've negated or that we've convinced ourselves are not okay for us or that we're not willing to stand for, that we're going to rebel against, that may be a long-running part of us, also will not so easily be able to be negated. They will start to become more rational. Also, I feel that if we override this, like a lot of people have been doing for the last while that this transit has been in, so say, for example, you force yourself to work that work shift at that job that you hate for a rational reason, like the paycheck or stuff like that. It's going to be harder, but because it is harder, the biological reaction that you have to forcing yourself to do something so difficult or forcing yourself to do something that feels so unkind will generate a certain, like, mirage, I want to say. Not a mirage, but it will kind of just show you exactly what you need, okay? Because it's so painstaking to do this, the contrast that you're experiencing in that moment will kind of reveal where you actually should be and how you actually should be treating yourself. So there is still a kind of backhanded fortune that will be coming through, and actually even more so. So some people have already done it. They've already walked away from the things that they know they don't need to be doing because it's not right for them. And then some people have also stopped maybe questioning something that's totally fine, something that's totally normal, but they had a need to like question every single structure in their life just to show themselves they had the authority to question it. It can be either end of the spectrum. Either side of that, the overriding, the choice to not adhere to the gut feeling, the choice to push oneself will really firmly generate an understanding of how an alternative process could be. And this is a gift. This is a blessing. So alternatives are a wonderful thing to consider during this last phase of the Saturn-Uranus square, especially during times where you feel this way, or you feel as if like you're overworked, or you feel as if you're not like respecting your body, or you feel as if you're not acknowledging your own humanity, or perhaps contrarily, you feel as if you're not allowing something to be simple. You're not allowing something to be a kind, giving, entity in your life, you're not allowing something to be fine either, and you're questioning it, or you're tearing it apart, or picking it apart, or going kind of like compulsively kind of looking for problems, trying to fix something that's not broken. Again, this can be on either side of those extremes, and we have to really know, and I think we will know after this fixed cross actually on August 14th, what side of that we're on, because that has to become clear for us to make the most appropriate decision moving forward. So contingency becomes clear, alternatives become clear, and feelings of burnout or feelings of overdoing things, pushing yourself too hard, taking on more than you can handle, becomes less romantic now. And it actually kind of starts to reveal itself during this like August to October window. It starts to reveal itself not as a self-loving act of like, wow, let me prove to myself how much I care about myself for like working for more money, or by being really committed to some type of goal. Now it becomes more like, okay, I actually can't even learn through this goal, or I actually am not benefiting from any type of like spirituality of this path because I'm so overdone that I've actually maybe gone into a somewhat catatonic phase where I actually can't really even notice what's going on. It's all a blur because it's so busy and it's so regimented and it's so impossible that it's almost like traumatic. Therefore, I won't even perhaps remember any of this stuff, or I won't have a very good recollection of what even happened during this period of time. That's also a huge possibility for like the January 2021 until October 2022 timeline. A lot of people are going to come past that and be like, it's all a blur. Like, because especially people who have overworked, or people who have pushed themselves too hard, or who have overridden their body's natural signals to pull back, or to, think twice about doing this or that, that could just end up being a blur for a lot of people. And what's really great about that is the realization that might happen now, that a lot of us will see. And the final kind of layer or final phase of this transit is not going to have us confused. Okay, we know if we're overriding our limits. We know if we're also picking something apart that doesn't even have any problems. We know that we're doing it at this point, and then that's when we really have to measure and see, why are we doing that if we know that it's not really the right way forward. This is a very kind of difficult dialogue about Saturn-Uranus square, but it's a hard transit, and it's something that is very nuanced. It's very tug of war-like. It's very much a push and pull, and kind of mysterious about what will win. Okay, what force will win, what mindset will be the best to do something. It's very ambitious and goal-oriented as well, but in a very conflicted way, and not in a very solid or composed way, okay, because there's this old world, new world battle represented by Saturn, old world, and Uranus, new world, where people really struggle even to know what side they're on, or really struggle to not have conflicting identity aspects to their chosen affiliations as well, because people can also get very competitive with the Saturn-Uranus square, and it's very likely to be within some type of competition, or within some type of huge tug of war, for lack of a better term. One of the positives that I can definitely see with this transit, and with the way it's coming in for the rest of the year, is it's going to be a really good time to reassess loyalties, and a really good time to understand what we're loyal to, or what is something that we want to be a constant or consistent aspect of our life. And this can be like as micro or macro as you can imagine. So this can be even as simple as like what types of brands you use, what types of daily routines you take part in. There could be a big reassessment there, and maybe a big change. I think that that's a positive way to channel the energy. Like, what types of updates or new things can you express to feel more solid in your evolution? Because for everybody, this is going to be an evolution. Okay, there's a change in season, I think, coming on, as we have a big movement from fixed to mutable signs also coming up. So the long-running fixed aspects of our life are about to go through a transition here. And it feels very much like a totally new way of functioning. So I just think so many people are up for an upgrade of sorts, and most people are maybe even behind on certain upgrades. And it's not like behind is the wrong word, because it's like you still have all of the energy to do the upgrades. So maybe you can just have a phase, or different people can have a phase where they're just getting caught up there, or just implementing a lot of new things. And that, I think, is a joyous part of this transit, is like, wow, now I can have this, or now I can move into this territory. Now I can actually do this, fund this, be applicable or qualified for this. There's a feeling of not being prevented from entering into something that you've needed for a long time, or something that you've wanted or have moved forward to, or have wanted to move forward into for a long time. Also, there is a benefit to having paid things forward now too. So having saved, having worked extra before to have more now, things like that can start to become very beneficial. And also make sure, if you are engaging in any difficult stories or anything that's really laborious or painful, make sure it's not in vain. That's another key part of this final phase of the Saturn-Uranus squares is, okay, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe we don't have the most perfect system implemented yet in our personal lives, but perhaps we can really cut out a lot of the painstaking things we do that don't serve a purpose. That has to go for this last phase. I think 2021 would have shown a lot of that type of stuff, where it's like, okay, I worked all those extra hours and I made less. Like, what happened there? You know, for some people that was very real. Also, just like maybe the false impression of like what more money means, or what more relationships mean, or what more ever means. Okay, a lot of people have such a scarcity mentality that they think more is always a good thing, or to have more, to expand or to grow or to take on can never be negative, but it can. Okay, it absolutely can, and that's what we would be seeing now. And we need to make adjustments, I feel, during this August time of this transit, to maybe understand, okay, can we cut out some of the stuff that we're doing in vain? Can we optimize? Can we further optimize? Because we've been working on that for a long time, I think. But what is the next level of optimization? And how much of a transformative edge and turning point does that materialize into my life? People might be right on the precipice of really the perfect optimization, or the most sensible, the most balanced integration or way forward that they've wondered upon in their entire lives. So there's a big life-changing season, or a big fool's journey even, that may be coming up here with the results that we come through this period of time with. And also, again, before I conclude, just really pay attention to what your body wants to resist. So also, just as a random message, there's a possibility of like a worker strike, or people not showing up, or people not any longer being able to do things they used to be able to do as well with this final level of Saturn-Uranus square. You might have like people calling in sick. You might also have people who just like don't show up to work, okay? Or you might have like coworkers or colleagues that you see just like aren't here. Businesses closed down, things just failing, okay? Because that's also possible with Saturn-Uranus. It's such a nullifying kind of square that really lifeblood energy can be kind of prevented to things that aren't really sensible, or aren't really maybe formidable, or tough enough, or enduring enough to really keep on. And I'm talking more so about economics and about that type of thing, but surely this can be a physical message as well. So for health as well, if you're not giving your body the proper nutrients, okay, it's going to kind of shut down a little bit. So if you're not eating enough, you could feel faint. Okay, if you're not providing a certain nutrient that a certain part of your body needs, that part of your body could act up here. This is not rocket science here also, you all. This is like simple 2 + 2 stuff, really. Like, if I don't eat, I'm not going to feel well. If I don't sleep, I'm not going to want to get out of bed, okay? If I don't have enough money to start that business, it's going to be harder to do that, okay? It might close down easier. If I don't if I choose to work a 90-hour work week, I'm not going to be able to do that much else with my time. Okay, this is kind of hard for some people to hear, but I feel that it's not that hard either. And I actually feel like it's relieving to accept some of these things. And I really do think that some people are still kind of taking it from weird angles. Like, I don't have the money to start a business, or I don't have the money to like expand my business or whatever it is, but I'm going to trust and I'm going to try. Or I am working 90 hours a week, but I'm still going to like take on a program of study or something. It's like, really, that is an interesting choice. How do you think that's going to go? It's not hard. And I think that everybody also might kind of be, maybe not in these extreme situations that I'm bringing up as examples, but take a look at your life and what things are like that, where it's like, it doesn't make sense, but I can actually make it make sense, or I can make certain alterations, or I can adapt things, or I can actually, work 30 hours, 20 hours, and then also study part-time. There are ways to make it make sense. And it's actually not as hard as we think it is for it to make sense. But it does require a concession of sorts. Saturn Uranus always requires a compromise and a concession on both sides, okay? So if you have this polarity in yourself where it's like, I am so juxtaposed in any sector of life, try to find the compromise, try to find the middle ground, because that's going to be the only way forward. I really don't think that any type of extreme is going to, in people's personal lives, it's not going to lead to a happy outcome. So it is about compromise here. Also, I would say that it's very important to acknowledge your current receptive status. Ooh, this is a good message. This is what we'll conclude on for this week, you all. It's a good little dialogue for conclusion. And this is why we have to be in touch with how we've been going for the last even like 5 to 7 years at this point, even up to 10 years for some people. Am I coming from a receptive or a giving phase of my life? There's a time to reap and a time to sow. I feel that ever since these Saturn Uranus squares came in, it flipped the switch a little bit. So if we were, 5 to 10 years ago in a phase where we were like getting and doing well and building and growing and elevating and now we might have to give back, okay? However, if we were in a time where we were taken from, we might get back during this time. And I think that would be very clear with whatever you're going through right now. Do you feel like you're being given a lot right now? Do you feel like you're maybe being taken from right now? Kind of checking in on your current receptive status will help you to understand what the universe or general momentum that you're on is gearing up for you. And both of those can be really good. So I know that everybody wants to receive, right? I mean, most people want to get positive karma. People want to do things where they get nice things. But we do really have to make sure that makes sense. Okay, are we acting in a way that lets that be possible? Like, are we being kind? Are we giving to other people? Are we paying things forward where that makes sense, Or are we stingy? Are we withholding things? Are we stockpiling? Are we, unnecessarily, or in a way that makes no sense, or in a way that wastes or anything like that? That can sometimes cue it up the other way. So it's very possible with the Saturn-Uranus square to try to resist or to try to make it the opposite. So if you think that you're in a time where you're being taken from, but you're actually not, like it's actually fine, and you actually have a lot to receive, you might try to make it the other way around. Or some people might have a tendency, I'm using the general you, of course, some people might have a tendency to be like, no, I can't accept that this is a period of time where I'm actually getting back from the universe. I've got to work harder. I've got to push harder. I've got to give more because that's what I'm so accustomed to, because it's switched, right? So everybody's accustomed to their old receptive status. And then the other way around, of course, that one's quite easy. People who are accustomed to like getting, they're like, oh my God, I can't handle that. Now it's a time for me to give back, and I can't look at that. And I feel that that's the source of pretty much every single conflict right now, is people not being really able to come to terms with the way that things change. And it does not have to be difficult, okay? Especially, on that side of things where it most often is difficult, but it can be either one, where it's like, oh no, I've been so accustomed to receiving and now I have to give. That can actually be great. Why not give because this is about energy at the end of the day, right? This is about the way that we work with the quantums and things like that. So when you're faced with a period where you don't want to stop receiving, and you realize that, okay, maybe this is a time for me to actually sow, not reap, what a beautiful time to start a new project. What a beautiful time to create a new business. What a beautiful time to get a new certification, to start a new program of study, and to give, right? when you pay tuition, and then that's a giving, and you eventually get the degree if you put in the work as well. Same thing with the business. When you start a business, you give to it, you put that money into it, and there's no guarantee that it's going to give back, right? But you've given something. So it's the same thing when you plant seeds, right? You put the seeds in the ground, and there's no guarantee that that's going to grow crops, but it will. Okay. So for a lot of people, with the fact that we have such an earthy oncoming time, oh my gosh, we have Pluto in Capricorn, we have the Uranus North Node in Taurus, we have Virgo season coming on, we have major Earth trines coming up. A lot of people will just do really well to acknowledge the way the natural Earth works, right? The seasonal aspect of life, the way that things grow on the Earth plane. It is of course scientific, yes, but it's not always guaranteed, right? I mean, if you put the seeds in the ground and you water them and they get sunlight, most likely they're going to grow, but it can't be guaranteed, okay? It can't be guaranteed. And then, yes, also, if you try to plant seeds into the winter snow during the dark season, it most likely will not grow, but it can't be guaranteed. I mean, by the time the spring comes, that could still grow. So trying to be control freak is hard in this world, and that's kind of like the source of so many different problems right now, and always with human nature. But try to take a look at your life and think about what your reaping and sowing strategies or actions really have been, and what does that mean for what you're currently growing or what you're currently expecting in your life. And does that make sense? I find so often that people are so frazzled. I don't know whether it's by technology or whether this is just human nature, but I find so often that people are just very out of touch with what they've actually planted and what they're actually growing. A lot of people get very panicked about what the result of their life is and can't realize that it makes perfect sense, okay? And we have to sometimes really take accountability for that. And we have to think, what am I giving attention? What am I watering? What am I creating? And if I want something else, it's not that hard, but it takes that starting over process. It takes that seed planting and that possibility of failure, because it's not guaranteed that it grows. But of course, there are certain environmental factors, right? If it's the right season, if we have the right sunlight, if we have the right water, it's much more likely to grow, but not guaranteed. So we have to really start to come to terms with chance and coming to terms with what nature has power over and what humans don't have power over. I think first and foremost with this transit, because it is this fixed cross, this Saturn-Uranus square that's coming, moving towards a more exact place by October, from now until October. And it is very much kind of people taking too much control into their own hands, and people not really leaving anything up to chance, but then also being really distraught or being really panicked about what they have chosen to create and what they have diligently contributed to. This can also be the bad diet and the subsequent health problems. Okay, why do I have this health problem? Well, it's small actions over a long period of time. And it's important to change those now, or to prepare these better lifestyles, because what people can really do, as I was talking about earlier, is okay, I see that I have this result. Okay, I want a different result. And then it's like a flash and a very strong clarity that can come through in this last phase of this transit that shows exactly how to do that and exactly what changes to make. So that's going to be open to us. And then for some people, that might not even come through until October to January. But from now until January, there's opportunities, especially in the October to January time period. There's opportunities for, or there are opportunities for that clarity, for exactly how to achieve the result that you want. But again, we have to really honor and respect that level of chance where nothing is guaranteed. And there is a relief in that feeling of chance, or in that feeling of nature's power. Okay, there is a lot of relief there, and there's a lot of feeling of like people like not actually having to control things, or not having to do certain things, or not having to really claim control or claim responsibility for certain things that are chance. Okay, because that's the detriment of this transit, people getting way too attached to certain outcomes and therefore also being liable for every single one of them. So take a look at also where you're putting too much liability onto yourself as well through a need for control. That would be very essential to start seeing right about now before we can't really go back on things, or before things really are permanent. Okay, because there's permanence with this fixed cross. There is permanence after this year also with certain affiliations or certain grids that we have been contributing to for a long time have a certain permanence about them. So that feeling of chance, that feeling of the growth that is not within our control, or the growth that we can only foster but cannot control, that I think is a great area of healing for people, and a great area of growth of faith, or growth of, trust in the divine, or trust in the magic of nature, stuff like that, rather than people feeling like it's their touch alone that has created these growths in their life, or has grown what they've planted. So it's both, right? It's that duality of effort, the planting and the natural growth. It's humanity working in tandem with nature. So that is something that really interests me. Okay, moving forward from this juncture here in August is that respect of both sides of the process, okay, of both contributors, of all connections to all of the moving parts that go into growth, okay? And there's a lot of knowledge there, okay? There's a lot of knowledge about growth through really acknowledging all of the different contributors to, who's planted the seed, what has the environment been, how has the weather been, how has the soil been, how has the sunlight and rain been, and then the watering, like all of these different things that have to happen for growth to take place. I think it's a really nice way to offset the structural, existential, industrial kind of aspect of the current transits as well, which are very implement oriented, instituting certain ideas, or complete control, complete rejection of seasonal things. And I actually was talking about this, I think this time last year, a lot about the factory culture, or the kind of non-seasonal aspect to production. And I think that's winding back up to become a big deal again. But we definitely have quite a long period of time, or a long period of re-examination coming up here. And for those of you who have been able to kind of prune down or cut down some of the unnecessary stuff, I think it's going to be easier than it was last year. I think it's going to be much easier because we've been through it already. And in astrology, when you have these long-running transits, the transit changes over time. Even though it's the same transit, it's Saturn-Uranus square, it takes a different tone as it advances and as more time passes. And this one is easier for a lot of people if they're making adjustments, and if they're working with the natural world, okay? But it's not going to be really easy for anyone either, because it's still not quite there, or the actual crossing of threshold still has yet to happen. But what we really can do well, I think, during this time of August 15th, and during this fixed cross, and moving forward to October, and then January, which both seem to be kind of base camps, or mile markers within this growth process and within this evolution that I feel most people are in. As we move through that, we can really start to get a good vision, or a good clarity of what a different lifestyle looks like. And also, I think that people, even by September and October, are in a completely different relationship with resources, or in a completely different relationship, or a different season of their own lives, like at a micro level. And I'm not even talking like macro or global or anything like that, just totally at the individual level. I feel that there's a totally different self-perception for some people. And then if it's not self-perception, it's maybe just a different terrain, a different region, or a different circumstance altogether with an entirely different, way to navigate their experience. So anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this quite lengthy dialogue about the fixed cross happening on August 15th and how that sets up the Uranus squares, Saturn squares, which will be exact in October and then echo probably until about December or January. Okay, so I just wanted to dialogue about that specifically, probably for the last time for a while, but I'm sure I'll be mentioning it here and there. But I thought it deserved its own topic as the fixed cross really sets us back up to go through that again. You can definitely check out some of my other videos, like the global dynamics for the last chapter of 2021. I talked about this a little bit there to understand the previous way that this was affecting us and get more information about your context relating to that. Also, I've talked a lot about this in the 2022 year ahead forecast and a bit in the new nodal paradigm video as well that talked about the North Node in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio. I will link all those videos below for you all in the description box. If you're new, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and turn on the bell notifications. Thumbs up this video to get it out there, and I am on Patreon as well. If you want to get premium content, I do weekly forecasts only over there. It's very reasonable, and it helps this channel be possible. So come check that out. It will be linked below as well. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week on Friday for another live premiere at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Much love. Have a great week. Bye.